Today, we turn our attention to Africa's voice on the global stage, how our continent is shaping international debates and influencing global policy decisions halfway through the year. Well, joining us for this conversation is Ambassador Joe Keshi. He is a former permanent secretary of Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and a seasoned diplomat with decades of experience representing Nigeria and Africa at the highest levels. We will be discussing Africa's media performance at the United Nations and other global fora, Nigeria's role in setting the agenda, and the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Ambassador Keshi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So, Ambassador, how would you assess Nigeria's diplomatic positioning at the United Nations so far in this 2025? Now, this is especially following engagements at Davos and the United Nations General Assembly.
Well, this year's General Assembly is going to be very, very interesting in my view, because already there are some global events are beginning to shape what will look like a very tough debates at the grounds of the General Assembly or the UN annual meeting. You have, for example, the Palestinian-Israeli issue, and you have the war between Ukraine and Russia. And as you can see, a number of events are moving very, very fast. As of today, nobody knows what exactly will be the outcome of the meeting on Friday on Ukraine-Russian war. And you have the position being taken by Israel and the rest of the world with regards to the situation in Gaza. So you will find out that every country, to use your word, is diplomatically positioning itself, either to be heard or not to be heard, or to maintain what I would call splendid silence. Because of the uncertainties and the consequences or implications of some of these crises on both the global situation and within the country itself. So it will depend on what shapes out itself between now and when the General Assembly opens in October.
Okay, so bilaterally and within the AU blocks, is there a cohesive regional voice on key issues like peacekeeping, debt justice, and UNSC reform?
Well, look, the truth that we must face is that in all these global happenings today, the African voice is missing. Africa do not have a cohesive regional voice on any key issues. Yes, you might hear the African community say, for example, that they support the two-state solution, but are they doing anything to actualize that two-state solution? Absolutely nothing. On issues like peacekeeping, there was a time Nigeria was among the leading countries involved in peacekeeping, but today we are no longer on the top of the program. As a result of so many issues which have to deal with our own credibility within the way we manage our peacekeeping funds, and which has to do with our own internal security, while our soldiers have been bogged down in internal security. So we are no longer, we might provide troops in squadron shape, structure here and there, but the truth of the matter is that when you compare this to the 80s and the early parts of the 90s, where we have a very strong voice in terms of peacekeeping, because we were participating in very many peacekeeping operations, the situation has changed. On debt justice, I do not think Africa has any common front except the appeal to the rest of the world that they should forgive Africa its debt, which I don't think they should, by the way. And as for the UNSC reform, Africa has not been able to achieve a common front. What they had as a common front was not really anything you can go by, and that is why they were not able to push the reform in the past.
Ambassador Keshi, it's interesting you mentioned African voices being unrepresented on the international scene. Well, lately, Nigeria has taken the lead on the push for permanent African representation at the UNSC. Well, what's the significance of this demand for both Nigeria and the continent?
I like the way you say Nigeria has taken a push for a permanent seat. So when you use that word, Nigeria has taken a push for a permanent seat, I think you should have asked, as of today, does Nigeria have the capacity or the capability to push that agenda and to ensure that it secures the seat itself? I do not think that Nigeria does have that capacity and the capability.
But why would you say so?
Well, for a number of reasons. Our own internal contradictions are one. Our global standing is equally the second point in view. Never mind whatever anybody tells you. What we do know is that when you look at our internal contradictions and what we're going through and the news coming out from Nigeria, the way it is being viewed, and the absence of our voice. Look, it has spent 2 years. You do not have ambassadors in any of the major cities of the world. In fact, in any, So now, who is going to lobby for you in all these places? That's the job of the ambassadors. So who is going to do the talking for you? Who is going to do the work for you at those places where your representatives are not on the ground? And it's not, we have our missions still open, but we also need to find out what the states of these missions are, and their ability to function optimally. So until we can, the good thing we have going for us, is that I'm not too sure that there will be any decision on the reform of the Security Council, Security Council. So we still have time, some years, to take a look at ourselves and maybe, reform some aspects of our life and then get back to where we should be as, I like to use the word the bankers use, as a systematically important country within the global community.
Well, Ambassador, earlier when we were speaking, we spoke about Nigeria's debt, of course, Nigeria and Africa's debts, which you said in your opinion, you wouldn't advise that debt be forgiven. Why would you say that? Because
we are irresponsible.
Oh? How so?
Because we are irresponsible. African debts were forgiven a couple of years ago, yes or no?
Yes, they were.
Exactly. So what did we do again? We went back and started compiling the same debts. We leave governments in Africa, quite many of them leave ostentatiously. They are not investing in where they should be investing in order to build up more capital for themselves. I mean, sometimes some of the money borrowed are not used for what they are borrowed for, and you tell the world to forgive you. Look, this is one of the reasons why Donald Trump, for example, is angry that America is spending so much on the rest of the world with nothing to show for it. This was when he dismantled the US AID. So no, I do not support that anybody should cancel our debts. It's like telling the banks to cancel the debts of some irresponsible debtors. No bank will do that. No bank will listen to you. You can't take loans to go and build a house, and then you take the loan, you spend it partying all night, or buying cars. and then you now tell the bank to forgive you. If you are the owner of that bank, will you forgive anybody doing that? Yes or no?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Thank you. So you've answered your own question.
Well, Nigeria is also, advocating for reforms in the international financial system. How would you say that intersects with priorities at the United Nations?
No, you see, when you're advocating for a reform of the international system, you must certainly keep in mind, or you must certainly state exactly what you want to reform. Yes, there's no doubt that, for example, the interest charges are very high, and things like that. But the truth of the matter is that some of these banks, even though they are development banks, even though they are there to help you, they have criteria for loaning you the money. It's like quite a number of us in this country quarrel with the IMF or for the conditions that they place when you are borrowing money. And quite often we argue that either the conditions are too strict or they are not fair. But look at it this way. As I always like to explain in the simplest terms, the IMF do not come to you. You go to the IMF. It's like saying when you are sick, the doctor do not come to you. You go to the doctor. Even when you call the doctor at home to come and see you at home, you are still the one going to the doctor. And the doctor makes some prescriptions for you to take. Then you turn around, you won't take them, or you do something different, or you say, oh, the drugs causes me more pain, so I won't take them. You will not be well.
Well, Ambassador.
So you understand that you cannot go to an organization, you are borrowing money, you are not keeping to the terms under which you have borrowed money, and you are saying you want a reform. No, you should state what kind of reform you want. If you are saying that we need to change the conditions of the loan, I will support that. But in changing the conditions of the loans, and you are ready to borrow from, under the new condition, are you still going to behave responsibly? So the point I think we should make is that African countries, when they are going to borrow, they should be very clear as to, number one, what they want to do with that money. Number two, they should also be sure that what they are investing on has the capacity or the capability of helping them to repay the loans. For example, we are borrowing a lot for redevelopment. But at the rate we are going, what we are borrowing, what the amount we charge for this and the way we operate our rate system, there's no way we can repay that loan without taking money from some other sectors to be able to pay back. So that's the situation we find ourselves. It's not, look, let me be clear. It's not that I'm saying that we should not borrow, because every country borrows. But we should be certain, we should do more work on what we want to borrow for. The ability of that project to borrow, to pay itself. The work ethics. So if the project is supposed to be completed in 4 years and it is completed in 6-7 years, there's a problem already. It increases the challenge of your ability to pay back.
Okay, so Ambassador Keshi, speaking earlier, you mentioned Nigeria's peacekeeping record and how in hindsight Nigeria is very active in those missions outside. Well, those and as well as Nigeria's leadership are often cited in UN debates. How do you think Nigeria should expand this influence in order to drive strategic changes in sectors?
Look, the only way you can change things anywhere. It's for you to be at the table. And when you are at the table, you should also be able to speak authoritatively, confidently, and push your ideas. And you should also have the ability to persuade others to listen to you. That's a place where you are physically on the table. The other thing is that you also need to be supported from the home base. This is why very often we say foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. If your domestic environment is very weak, it limits your ability to be very assertive. It limits your ability to go on an adventure on the international scene. So that is a handicap we feel right now with regards to Nigeria. Yes, I was at a meeting somewhere this morning, and I think I was listening to one of the stations. The international community is confidence on the Nigerian economy is increasing. Fair enough. But you see, that's a narrow way of judging what's going on in Nigeria, because they are looking at just currency stabilization and a few other indices. But the people themselves who live in that country feel otherwise. They do not feel that the economy is working for them. So that contradiction needs to be resolved as part of the effort to give us that confidence to be assertive when we are dealing with the international community.
Well, Ambassador, in your opinion, what should Africa and as well Nigeria prioritize in the next phase of multilateral diplomacy?
I think the first thing they do is to put their different states in order and earn the respect of the international community. They need to decide what exactly do they want. They need to be able to have the power, the strength, and the ability to express their views and to organize as a united body to challenge what they do not like. But where you are operating from a very weak base, listen, why, for example, do you think that you saw the 5 ambassadors that went to Washington recently, the 5 countries that went to,
to meet with President Trump, yes.
Yes, if you were to analyze their meeting with Donald Trump, as an African, how would you feel?
Not very proud, truthfully.
Precisely. So we should not repeat that mistake. How on earth can you go to the President of America and you say, oh, I know you are a golf lover, come and build a golf course in my country. Of all the things you need in the world, it's a golf course. How many Senegalese play golf, for example? So our leaders must first of all prepare themselves to engage the world and know what their countries need and how to go about getting those things.
Well, Ambassador, you said earlier in our conversation that our foreign policy is a representation of our home policy, our home-based policy. What would you say is the direction now of our foreign policy?
Well, look, I guess we are maintaining the status quo. The foreign minister, as far as I'm concerned, is trying his best. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, they are trying their best. But on the whole, a situation in which we do not have ambassadors abroad, a situation where it becomes very, very difficult for us to say that our voices are being heard. I mean, if the truth must be told, not only do we not have ambassadors abroad, the situation that most of our nations find themselves is unacceptable. And so when you find diplomats in a demoralized situation? How do you, if they're like soldiers, if they're in a demoralized situation, they do not have all the necessary tools to work with, and they have very low morale. What do you expect of that group of people?
So, please go ahead.
So that's the honest truth. You know, there are a number of things we need to learn to get right. I keep, look, our competitors spend more on foreign policy than we do. I'm not talking of Europeans, I'm talking of some African countries. I do not think that there are any African country that will spend 2 years without an ambassador. In fact, some countries even allow the ambassadors to spend up to 5, 6, 7 years. And there are reasons for that. Our own is always the same Nigerian behavior.
Would you say there are specific alliances or conversations that need to be had in order to move things forward?
Of course, there are. I mean, in fact, I'm just coming from a meeting of the executives of the retired career ambassadors of Nigeria, and we're debating whether we shouldn't actually ask that we have a conversation on the state of our foreign policy, that we have a conversation on the state of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that we have a conversation on the state of our missions abroad. Because some of the reports we are getting and which we have witnessed, I traveled out recently to 1 or 2 countries, and anywhere I go to, obviously, I just have this obligation to go and say hello to the staff in the missions and things like that. What I get, the reports I get, the stories I hear, are heartbreaking in some instances. So when you know, look, I don't know whether you're a football lover. When you shoot a weak team and you go and play a very good team, a first-class team, you can beat him like nobody's business. Just like we lost 4-0 in where now in recent
yes.
Green Eagles match.
Yeah.
Team B. So look, some of these situations are not different from one another. So there are a couple of things that we need to do to put our house in order, and that's why we say domestic policy. I mean, foreign policy is an extension of domestic policy. But you cannot sometimes behave the way you behave at home, and then you go abroad and behave the same way. And for people like me, it is very difficult to accept the notion or the idea or the popular belief that there's no money for foreign affairs. But there are money that you are spreading around the country. You are giving states 3 billion each with no idea of what the money will be spent on. But you are moving to that's 111 billion naira. Put that 11 billion naira into foreign affairs, it will change the ministry, it will change our missions, and it will strengthen our foreign policy.
Ambassador, it's been a very insightful conversation with you, but before we let you go, as the president of the Retired Career Ambassadors of Nigeria, how can seasoned diplomats support current efforts behind the scenes?
Please come again.
So I'm asking, as the president of the Retired Career Ambassadors of Nigeria, how can seasoned diplomats support current efforts behind the scenes, being that you've been there, you've seen what needs to be done?
Well, you know, we can help a lot. We can do a lot. But the structure of the Nigerian society sometimes does not even provide that opportunity for you to do. So you struggle for your voice and ideas to be heard. And even when it is reluctantly heard, You don't even get a response that anything will be done. You know, but when you compare the same situation with our counterparts abroad, it's completely different. It's completely different. You know, I don't think that we are the only ones that suffer the same thing. I believe the military also does. The security forces also, you know, they do. In fact, I think they fare even better than we bloody civilians. But they have a way that they can get their voices heard. But look, my counterparts and people in the military in most of these advanced countries, even in, I think in Korea or Singapore, when top civil servants retire, they don't just send them out and say goodbye, good night, go and enjoy your retirement. I think in Singapore or Korea, I'm trying to remember which of them now, you are actually asked to go back to do some work for about 1 year or 2 years before you finally go on retirement. Why is that done? That is so that the state that has trained you, you have worked for the state for over 30 years, that they can still take from your wisdom in the development of the state. But here it's like, oh, it's your turn to, you are due to retire. What are you waiting for? Please go, so I can get our turn. You know, that's part of the philosophy of a middle now. So it's my turn. So you please get away. And once you get away, nobody consults you again. But in the countries that have made progress, even those who have retired after so many years in services are often brought into think tanks. They are appointed into commissions and so on, so that the nation can continue to benefit from their experience.
Oh. Ambassador Keshi, thank you so much for sharing your insights on Nigeria's place and as well Africa's place on the global conversation, and also the importance of strategic engagement moving forward. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, and I should thank you too for having me.
Thank you. Have a nice day, sir.